Codenamed Operation Mockingbird, was a covert operation started by the CIA at the behest of President John F. Kennedy in 1962. It started as a large-scale wiretapping operation to report back to the president any and all potential conspiracies by foreign agents working on behalf of the Soviet Union to overthrow the United States and undermine the president. At the time, Frank Wisner, a prominent leader within the CIA, was head of its Office of Policy Coordination. He understood that in order to win the Cold War, the United States not only needed an elite military, but that it also needed to control any and all information released in the media. As time went on, though, the objective quickly shifted from protecting the country on behalf of the president from foreign influence to controlling the narrative in the media to ensure that only pro-American stories dominated headlines while communist ideologies around the world were left utterly discredited. Alongside Frank Wisner, Allen Dulles, another infamous name, who later became the director of the CIA and was the mastermind behind the later disclosed dark, evil, and likely criminal operations such as MK Ultra, envisioned the media landscape as their playground where they could influence and control public opinion. Controlling the mainstream media was a monumental task, however, so they hatched a plan operating from the age-old adage, how do you eat an elephant? You have to do it one bite at a time. As it progressed, though, the operation grew, and so did the network that encompassed some of the most prominent news organizations across the world. It was successful by operating from a place of secrecy, subtlety, and influence. First, the CIA identified a small number of prominent and influential journalists who could be bribed and persuaded to release stories that aligned positively with the CIA's objectives and interests. Next, they embedded operatives in major newspapers, magazines, and broadcasting networks in radio and in television. Third, the CIA recruited the journalists that they had pre-identified. They weren't recruited by force, but by being bribed with career opportunities, wealth, influence, exclusive information, and advancement. In return, all they needed to do was write stories that aligned perfectly with the CIA's objectives. These journalists oftentimes became unwitting participants and agents contributing to a much larger global campaign to steer public opinion. And finally, the CIA crafted skillfully and well-thought-out propaganda messaging that would resonate with the unaware majority viewing public to advance their own ends. This included downplaying the perceived negative aspects of a story while at the same time elevating the perceived positive aspects of a story, effectively flipping something that most would disagree with to something that would be welcomed and potentially celebrated as a victory. Slowly but surely by these means, these covert operatives posing as influential journalists and editors were able to thoroughly shape the global perception to a majority of consumers subtly and without ever being detected. In 2020, a man by the name of Glenn Greenwald appeared on Tucker Carlson Tonight, highlighting these issues. Greenwald himself is a self-identifying leftist, whose political appetites are by no means conservative. So much to Tucker's surprise, and the rest of the world watching, Glenn Greenwald began to expertly identify the enemy and lays out the subject that we're discussing. And I have to say, it's actually quite remarkable that this happens without us ever realizing. Take a look.
If you go and Google, and I hope your viewers do, Operation Mockingbird, what you will find is that during the Cold War, these agencies used to plot about how to clandestinely manipulate the news media to propaganda to the American population. They used to try and do it secretly. They don't even do it secretly anymore. They don't need Operation Mockingbird. They literally put John Brennan, who works for NBC, and James Clapper, who works for CNN, and tons of FBI agents right on the payroll of these news organizations. They now shape the news openly to manipulate and deceive the American population. So if you're an American wondering what foreknowledge and involvement did the FBI have in January 6th? If you go and listen to those networks, you're going to get lies because the only people they're asking are people who are serving those agencies and acting to disseminate disinformation. That's what those outlets are.
Man, that is shocking. Shocking to me. Glenn Greenwald, I appreciate your coming on tonight. Thank you very much.
Good to be with you, Tucker.
This was a highly sophisticated, complex, and intricate network of modus operandi, of which the end goal eventually became more and more sinister. And by now, I am sure that you have deduced how this method of thorough and cohesive propaganda could be used in opposite direction if this apparatus was controlled by enemies from within. It morphed from an objective of influencing the media narrative to influencing the next generation of leaders through educational institutions and cultural programs by embedding sometimes unaware operatives into the confines of these mediums. Hence why I believe that this is why we see far-left, anti-American, and self-professing communists sitting in the highest positions attainable within our universities, colleges, news networks, tech and entertainment, as well as political office, seeking to consistently undermine the capitalist, patriotic, pro-American, and anti-racist sentiment of the majority of the American electorate. I wholeheartedly believe, along with many others, that for decades, susceptible minds have become victim to the same propaganda that they have been force-fed from the time that they were born and into their adult life. For all intents and purposes, they have been successfully brainwashed.